going to find out that jumping on is a lot easier than jumping off. Wow!
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know. The air is unfit to breathe. Our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
And how long you been here now?
I've lived in Vegas for 26 years now.
Okay, well then you're Las Vegan at this point, I would say.
No, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love the state. This is a great state. It's been amazing to me, and it's provided me a lot of opportunity and stuff like that. So the history is really rich, and there's a lot of stuff going on out in Vegas. So it's a beautiful thing. But let me make this official over here and get this bad boy kicked off. But guys, I just want to say welcome again to another episode. This is number 11 of the ThinkStopper. You know me, I'm the guy, Trez Mala, the ThinkStopper, conspiracy theorist, agitator, provocateur extraordinaire. That's about as best as I can slowly sum up my existence on the social media. But we're here with another good episode. Just real quick, want to give a big shout out to man, I can't remember the names offhand, but I love you guys if you're listening. My crew from California that I met on my tour. Thank you very much for the kind words. I did a tour, and these people, this couple in the back, they're like, "Do you do a podcast?" And I was like, "Oh my God, they heard it!" Like the random chance. And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You got a really good voice for like radio and podcast." And I go, "Why? You just sick of seeing the chopper? You want to just read it, And yeah, guys, I just want to give a big. They were from the 310, so
okay,
yeah, that's why I give it. But I just want to say thanks because they already found it and liked it and all that stuff when I was on there. But that was good. And then here's another thing I want to give a brief little notice on. Mikey's not here with us today. He's out doing the family thing. Kids are in a gymnast meet, and priorities. I hope they win big. I hope they do good like they did over there in Japan. But Mikey will be back. Maybe he might even pop in. He's saying that this all depends, but we'll go from there. But our guest today, just want to get down to it. Sorry, I feel weird doing the official particulars.
I'm all good. I have my podcast, and I struggle with where to put that particular part. Sometimes I'm like, I just start the conversation, and then sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta actually say that this is a podcast.
Yeah. But guys, we have the what was it? The number one LGBTQ,
the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't want to butcher it. And I did. But Ty Rivera, everybody. We are very happy to have him here with us today to talk a lot of shop and to get into things and stuff. But one of the things that I just want to say before I get started, I was a fan of Ty's. I met Ty via a friend, our mutual buddy Bobby Wayne Stotts, another comedian just on the scene. And one of the things that struck out at me about you is 100% pure like fearlessness on stage. There's like, if there's anybody that can say that like stays in the pocket is definitely you. You know what I mean? Like you're holding down the fort every time, good, bad, or indifferent, and you're not afraid to drop the hammer. And that's one of the main reasons why I even got in, or I should say back into comedy, was like for that type of free speech, that rawness, that expression. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just feel when it comes to comedy, when it comes to a lot of things in life, it's like, are you asking me or are you telling me? Because if you're asking me, I'm saying no. If you're telling me, I have nothing to say about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way I feel like with people, like, especially being gay and, being as out as I am and as open as I am. I just always felt like, well, if I ask people's permission, they're going to tell me no. So if I just say, this is what I'm saying, you can either like it or not like it, but it is what it is. I'm saying it. People usually go with it. I mean, like, I don't get a lot of problems, even on the road. The most redneck spots I go to, and, especially with the stuff I've been doing now, I've been doing something called the Brewery Comedy Tour. And,
Yeah, I saw that,
yeah, I do that. It's like breweries and wineries, and, depending on the venue, it'll be either the brewery tour or the winery tour. But it's the same type of people, the wine people tend to be a little more snooty sometimes.
Yeah, I could see that.
But in a lot of cases, they just have purple teeth. They're the same as the
purple
beer
lips,
drinkers.
purple teeth.
Yeah,
definitely.
they're the same. It's not like
It's all this. It's only the only difference is stemware.
Yeah.
Like they think it elevates them to the next.
Yeah, and that's not an insult. That's just been my audience for a long time now. So when you're working with like more like the redneck type audience, in a lot of cases, it's just
Is the brewery, like the brewery and the winery tour, is that like just like any other kind of like comedy crowd when you're on the road, or is it like a little bit more I don't know, open, or like, I don't want to say easy, because I don't think there's like anything that's easy until you actually go through it, but something that's just a little bit more I can't think of the word, but more accepting to a gay comedian, or
not
anything.
necessarily because of where we are. Like, the last one I did was Clarksville, Tennessee, and then before that we were doing. Are you familiar with what they call Pennsyltucky?
Pennsyltucky? No, I haven't heard of Pennsyltucky.
Okay, like
Pendertucky and everything else.
Pennsylvania is actually more redneck than most people would expect. People usually think of it as like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh is a working town, like working class. You know what I mean? So it's still a city. So when you're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, those two are like actual cities. But everything that's not that is, a friend of mine that's from Pittsburgh explained this to me. He was like, everything that's not that is basically Pennsyltucky, and it's all kind of redneck, and it's all like, so it's what the locals refer to, or
That's funny.
people refer to when they say Pennsyltucky. And so we were performing places like that. We were in West Virginia, we were in Virginia, and there was a situation in West Virginia. Parkersville, I believe it was. Parkersville, West Virginia, where we went into a place called the Omelet Shop, and both omelet and shop were spelled incorrectly.
Nice.
Not joking, it's just what it is, but it was like,
I think they misspelled it at the Omelet House here. It's like, it's the American spelling. That's how we call it, but sorry.
Yeah, no. And so I walked in, and there were guys that worked the oil fields that were there. And that was like, with my hair and everything else, it was a situation where I walked in and it was kind of like, well, this guy isn't one of us. And so it was like,
It's weird when you're out of town and people, like, no matter how you're dressed, people just know you're from out of town. Like, I thought when I was visiting Chicago with my friends, we all pretty much dress the same. We look, you know what I mean? Like alike. It's just, and then like all the homeless people would just be like, hey man, how long you visiting? I'm like, how do you know I'm from out of town? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I'm even walking like I know where I'm going. Like, leave me alone. How do you see me up?
No, with me, it's like, and I don't blend with a lot of people, like between like my hair, tattoos,
right.
looking Asian, like everything. It just doesn't like
Can
for a
stand
lot of
out in
people,
that lineup, right?
they're just like, yeah, this doesn't look like anybody we know.
But so the audience, have they been, is it any kind of like anything you got to be the icebreaker kind of deal between, like, having to deal with anybody that's not, or crowds that aren't, familiar or comfortable or anything. Is it any different than like when it comes to being a gay comic, in those shows versus clubs?
Well, yeah, because even the clubs I do, like I was at.
You're billed that way at these places, right? You're billed as LGBT. No, you're not.
I
Ty
just
Rivera?
come in and just like some places, like the brewery tour. A lot of times, people now they've started to advertise me more. But like at first, the way it works is when you're just one of the comics on the brewery tour. And I don't know if it's because he's not sure who's going to stick around, or if it's just like doesn't get around to the individualizing right away, which would make sense if it's like you're not really sure who's going to be around, because it can be tough doing the brewery tour with the amount of distance sometimes that you have to go between gigs. And so anyway, my point is, in a lot of them at first, it was just like people would just come out to see comedy, and then I would be the headliner. And so they, at that point, just have to deal with whatever it is I'm doing because I'm the headliner. And so the way it works for me, though, is I've been working with these kinds of audiences for so long now that I understand that there's a lot going on when it comes to LGBT, and that's why I make fun of the LGBTQIAA, and it's like middle America in a lot of cases is just trying to wrap their heads around it, and it's like people make it seem like that part of the country or anything that's not New York, LA, San Francisco is very closed-minded and not open to stuff.
Yeah, they're still like, it's weird. You go back in time a little bit when you go to certain places that's not on the coasts. You go back to where you're sometimes you see, I've been to places where they have VCRs in the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're like, oh yeah, if you want a movie, just go and pick one. And you're like, like I got celled that out here, dude. I'm good. But so for anything that's going to push any kind of status quo or anything out there, it's going to take a while to get to. It's going to take a while for them to wrap their head around or to be comfortable with it, because...
Well, you just have to make it more palatable for them, because I do really well in those areas. That's why I continue to do them. Like, I get requested back all the time. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm just talking on just outside of comedy at this point, like with the LGBTQ,
But the thing is, in any condition or case, I think most people could help them out by meeting people where they're at. You got to remember that, like, for you, this has become, when I say you, I mean me or any other LGBT person, this has become normalized to us over time.
Yeah.
But most of us, because of how we were raised, originally, we were ourselves, in a lot of cases, homophobic. That's why it takes a while to come out, because you don't want to be gay. Nobody's more homophobic than a gay person when they're right about to come out, because at that point there is a reason for a phobia.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
It's like, this could ruin my whole life. This could be the end of it. No friends, no family.
No, yeah, totally. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine like having to break that go through that ceiling. You know what I mean? Like to go through it. A lot of my friends, though, I grew up with, and this is what always I just have to shake my head, is when people are like, "You're not born gay." I'm like, dude, yes. There's a percentage of people probably know, but yes, I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've seen it. I have friends I grew up with the whole time. You're like, this motherfucker gay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then as soon as we graduate, it was like, I'm here, I'm queer, fucking deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, told you. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like we're all just waiting. You know what I mean? Like, hey, yeah, you admit it. But, the social pressures, one of my absolute best friends, rest in peace, Steve Graham, he was the one that opened me up. He's like, dude, look what these people are dealing with and stuff like that. Because there was one point in time where I was just like, oh, yeah, that's fucking gay shit. He's like, why do you care? And I was like, yeah, why do I? I really don't. And that changed like my world for me. And one of the things was, and this bothers me to this day, people that we grew up with, that were the best of friends with this dude. When he had to move out of town, right? He gets out of town, gets totally disconnects from everybody, comes out, he's gay and he's living his life and he's doing his thing. And then like when people found out, they're like gay bashing him as far as like, like, oh, what a fucking fruity, no, it's like, and even at his funeral when he died, there's people that were all upset about it. And I was like, are you motherfuckers crazy? I'm like, that's the dude we grew up with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, that was my friend. I've had like some of the most intimate and deep conversations with this dude. You're gonna tell me because of where he likes it and where he likes to put it, you're gonna say that marginalize him as a person? Like, you're fucking out of your mind, And that's what he had to deal with,
Yeah.
That's what everybody, and that's something that people don't understand,
Yeah, well, that's where, and, not to keep bringing it back to like stand-up and stuff like that, but that's what you go through on a nightly basis when you're a gay stand-up. Well, I can tell you as a person that's like really traveled a lot, like I go through that nightly where I'm like, I don't know if this crowd is going to turn or just be cool. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty much always cool.
What in that moment, are you afraid to like overthink it to then complicate it, or are you just like the thought goes through your head, oh, I don't know about these people, could go this way or that way, then you just like release it, throw it out there, and you're like, I'm just in the moment?
Yeah, it's like right before you're gonna rip off a Band-Aid. You know what I mean? Like I've always been one of those people that's like, let's just fucking do it. If we're gonna do it, let's just do it. And that's like my attitude about everything. So there's a part of me that's like, I don't know how they're going to take this when I'm on stage, but at the same time, I'm like, they're going to take it.
See, I would just get in the shower for a long time until it just fell off. You know what I mean? I'll just stand there and just make it really awkward till everybody's like, all right, let's just address this. But, I've had a few friends I grew up with that were gay. My buddy Steve, he took that, I know, like kind of the most persecution, because he was like, I think is what messed with a lot of guys is he was the dude everybody looked up to, as far as like he was like he had the hustle, he had the herb, he had he had the clothes, he was the fashion dude, he was putting, he was the first dude DJing, he was the guy, he was just. And I think when dudes kind of modeled themselves after him, and then he comes out as gay, it just like it fucked with them.
Yeah.
And it made a few of them angry, and I was like, that's just sad. Like the only thing I want is my friend back. You know what I mean? Like, but
it's like, well, he's gay, and I wanted to be him, but I didn't know he was gay. You know what I mean? So I think that's what bothers them is like,
just think of all the people that idolize Bruce Jenner.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they had to like. They got to be like, there's got to be some kind of Mike Tyson fight going on in their head with their emotions and feelings. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine there was dudes out there that were rocking his haircut.
He was the picture of masculinity. Right? He was. That was it.
It was him and who was the other guy that was ham during those times? At least I equated. Was it Jan Michael Vincent?
Uh-huh.
He was the other like starry-eyed guy before he lost the eye, but Illuminati plucked it out. But no,
hate you so much.
No, that's just that was a sacrifice. His good looks, right? I don't know. You always got to have fun with that, but
oh yeah, I have fun with all the the ridiculousness that people throw out there as sometimes when you hear conspiracy theories, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes you're like, well, that's just one to have fun with either way.
Mm-hmm. Well, my whole thing is like, as far as like conspiracies, I've always sought out the alternative from the narrative, to know something, because I was one way the whole time growing up, and then there was like a part of me where I was like, well, I don't think like that. That's really not. I was just going along to get along. So then I was like, the things that I like grew up not liking, or things I didn't like, I was like, I'm gonna start looking into that just so I know, so I can actually have an argument, because I can argue my I guess now opponent's side, or what, I can argue their side all day long. Mm-hmm. But I started going the other way, so I know both sides of the thing, and I was like, wow, it's really a little bit different when you kind of figure things out on your own, or you don't just follow the sound bites and all that stuff like that. But
Well, there's so many things that we're told to believe just based on what we're born into. You know, like I'm Mexican, so like there's certain things that I'm supposed to believe about all white people from when I was a kid, you know, and
Right.
like, and then as you get to know more people, and that used to be easy for people to get away with because we didn't know each other, you know, like it did used to be very segregated, even as far as just the way people treated it in their own personal lives, even if it wasn't legally segregated. People chose to be like, you go to Chicago, you mentioned Chicago. Chicago is very segregated, even though it's not segregated, obviously.
oh yeah, totally. You got your little your Greek town deal. You got your Greek neighborhood. You got your Polish neighborhoods. You got your black neighborhoods. Everything. There's a big Mexican community down there. I mean, the whole
Cicero, yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's the
You know what I mean? Like
Mexicans in Cicero.
the whole thing. So yeah, and why do people do that? Because it's where they're culturally comfortable and the cultural norms. You know.
Yeah, and it's easy to believe that black people are like this and white people are like this, and it's true to a certain degree. There are certain stereotypes exist for a reason, you know.
100%, yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that doesn't mean that that's necessarily just an innate, you know. It doesn't have to be that way in every situation, you know. Not every black person has to have rhythm. Not every Mexican person is gonna, you know, speak Spanish or necessarily be fiery, you know. Like it's sometimes
be fiery.
That's what
or be
people
the
expect.
slowpoke.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny is I always tell people, I was like, no, usually the lazy Mexicans are the second and third generation ones that have grown up
true.
here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the kids that I went to school with, not the kids that like showed up at my school that like wearing the old school Michael Jackson donated shirts. You know what I mean? Like, and all, you know, not knocking them, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of kids right over the border came right into my class,
Yeah.
and my job, you know, just as a student was, hey, help him out with his English. You know what I mean? It's like, it's what we can do right now, you know? And I was, man, you know, when I was a kid, we used to go vacation down to Mexico, and we would go and we would take, it was at Christmas time, we would take up like a box full of gifts and hand them out to the kids. And I always felt guilty for that. You know what I mean? I always just felt like that was like, you know, look at me. But at the same time, it made me feel good, you know, sit there and play with the kids. But, you know, they're living in literally cardboard homes.
Yeah.
And, but I know it was a good thing and stuff, but I just still felt guilty, you know. But sorry, I don't know how we got off on that one, but no, one of the things I was alluding to, as far as, or I thought you might have been getting towards, is like there's a lot of differences that make up our surroundings, but at the core end of it, I mean, we're all the same. Like we all have trying to feed our families, we're all trying to, you know, take care of one another, or as far as, you know, in our immediate circle, our friends and our family.
And that's what I'm more about right now than the other stuff. That's why, like, you know, there was a point where I would actually debate and argue politics and that kind of stuff on social media. But I've started to get away from that because, one, I'm way better at being funny. You know, I'm good at shitting on people online all day long. I'm great at it, really. But really, I can make the most change and get people to see things like my way, or like my people's way, you could say, you know, by actually making them laugh and then let them have the serious conversation later on. And if they have any questions, they can reach out to me, which is something that happens quite a bit for me. Because one, I know, like, you know, you guys talk about conspiracy theories and that kind of stuff, but, you know, there's conspiracies that are less, I guess, less organized, less, you know, like when you look at the LGBT community and everything that's going on with that, there's certain things where it's exactly the way you're describing it. Like the gay people I know aren't worried about all the things that the media makes it seem like we're worried about. Most of the gay people I know are worried about the things you just mentioned: paying their rent, being able to support their kids, being able to, you know, support their families. But instead, it's supposed to be, we're all mad at Kevin Hart because he said what he said.
Yeah.
Did people have feelings about about what Kevin Hart said? Yes. Was I one of those people? To a certain degree, yes, but not to the degree that the media made it seem like. And that's because like certain groups, activist groups, have made so much money off of the outrage in the LGBT community that it serves their purpose to continue to perpetuate that and make it seem like that's a constant thing for us. You know, and I do what's considered like offensive to other LGBT people type comedy in certain instances, but then I meet other LGBT people in actual comedy situations where they're seeing me perform and they're appreciative to me. But instead, social media and the media in general makes it seem like a person like me has no place. So, you know, there's those kinds of things that happen too. It happens when it comes to race as well.
Yeah.
You know, people were talking in the election about how much Latinos hated Donald Trump. And then more Latinos than they had ever expected voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah. Not only that, but I would work. I work with one of the guys. He'd be like, "Fuck," he'd be like, "Fuck Trump," da, da, da. But he's like, he's you know, he's doing all right by me though. You know what I mean? Like, well, one of the things. This was later though, but the problem with Tijuana, you know, like I'm friends with him on Facebook. He doesn't work with us anymore, but he's posting all this now. He's like now he's a full blown Trump supporter because of all the migrant caravan that came through was like destroying Tijuana. That's like where him and his family is right now. And he's like, dude, it's a mess down there, you know. But they were all led to believe, you know, that they think one way. Everybody's just pigeonholed into one thing, you know. And my issue, especially when it comes to conspiracies, I'm always down, but it's one of the things that always has bothered me is like media manipulation, mind control, like, you know, TV's the hypnotist in the room, you know what I mean? They call it programming for a reason, you know, that kind of stuff. It's always been the sun it's fucked with me. And exactly what you're saying today, or exactly what you're saying is been happening today. I woke up and all of a sudden I just had to like go through, I don't know why I got to, you know, it's just in me. I'm like, hey, look at the other side. Like the kid with the MAGA hat and the Native American. I don't know if you saw that on it. It's a big thing. Everybody's all, you know, I can't believe one of the guys I like, Wheeler Walker Jr., posted this kid's face and said, I know people in this place. If you see this kid, punch him in the dick. I got a free album for you. I'm like, really, dude? You just put a hit out on a child? You know what I'm saying? Pretty much like, I mean, seriously, like, what are you thinking? And I'm not defending the kid or anything like that, but they said the kid taunted the Native American, and they have video where he's just standing with, he's got that smug look on his face, you know, whatever. And then the thing is like when you look at it, he almost looks more confused than he does like a smug look on his face. But then you go to the full video. There's like an 11-minute stream, or you know, it's a video that was a stream, and it shows black Israelites yelling at the kids, and they're just chanting and laughing and doing what a group that had people outnumbered, that, you know what I mean, doing what they would do, making fun. They're mocking, like they started doing their own haka and all that. You know what I mean? Like there's but nothing of anger. The black Israelites, they're yelling, they're cussing, they're calling the one black kid that's over with them at least by the camera. They're calling him an N-bomb, and they're saying that he's a sellout, and the white people that he's with are going to harvest his organs and all. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? They're going off. Well, while they're having this banter, here comes the Native American guy with his drum right in between them. Then he walks right over to the kids, and he stands right in front of the steps where the kid was, and he's banging the drum. And he actually in the one photo, and this is the Black Israelites photo, or their not their photo, but their video that they're showing. At least that was on their post. From the other angle, not the angle that everybody sees the picture of the kid from the right, but it's the other angle, and it shows him like the guy's like literally beating the drum like really close to his face, like invading his privacy, his private space, right? He's encroaching. And it shows the kid telling people behind him, no, chill out, it's okay, right? And the guy's doing, banging the drum like right, which I think is taunting, to be honest. But the thing is, there was none of that is taken into context. None of that is taken into what happened, what actually happened, you know. And then in an interview, the guy, the Native American, I know his last name's Phillips. I can't remember his. I guess that's not the point. But he says in the interview with CNN, I walked in between the two groups, and I walked over to the kid, and then he said the kid wouldn't get out of my way, so I stood there, and he stood there, and da-da-da-da. And that is true. You walk over. I don't see the kid moving to get in his way. I saw him walk right up to the kid and stop and just bang the drum. But you have all these people and all these news stuff going out and saying that the kid taunted and they were throwing racial slurs and stuff. And now they're having to go back and say, oh, no, this is what, now they're trying to shape it and stuff. But all day today, I had to keep posting the video on people. I'm like, just look. I'm not saying what the kid did was right. I'm not saying what the people in the red hat, I'm not siding with them. But you're over there, you're looking to fucking put this kid's head on a fucking stake, and he did nothing wrong. He didn't say one word to the guy. He stood there and he smiled while the guy was beating the drum, and people said, oh, it's disrespectful. The guy approached him. Like, he didn't come out, and then they tried to say that everybody surrounded him and stuff like that. That ends up happening while it's actually happening, but it wasn't like an immediate thing. But my whole thing is just watching all these people online, on Facebook and Twitter and all stuff, just go off on this. Like, this is the worst thing happening in the world, and this is the most hateful person. And then when I watch what's going on, I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy that this is what it's come to. This is what they're spinning. And I guarantee if that kid had purple hair, right, and you know, or a mohawk or whatever, this wouldn't be an issue. But the fact that they had red hats on, or the MAGA, you know what I mean? Now this is an issue of race and all this craziness. But that's the spin. They're trying to tell people how to think and feel, and that's my issue with like media and stuff. And that's the whole reason. That's one of the reasons why I do the podcast.
See, in my opinion, though, that's where Trump supporters are starting to fuck up. Because the thing was, people used to go to Trump rallies and, like, disrupt them. And it was always like, okay, well, then why are you at a Trump rally? But when there's an Indigenous Peoples March and the MAGA kids show up, it's kind of like, well, why are you there other than to start trouble?
They were there for the March for Life. So there was 2 marches happening at the same time.
The abortion, yeah.
So, again, Catholics. It's a Catholic school
so
deal.
Misguided. Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
It's like, and also like the
See, we have just a recipe
same.
of shit going on here, right?
Yeah. It's, I don't know who did the scheduling on that. I'd want to know who did that, because that's who I'd be looking at.
That's a good point. That's not something that I didn't even think
rather
of.
than even looking at the kid and the NATO, like who on both sides was in charge of making sure that happened, because that wasn't an accident. I'm sure that people...
well, it's easy to pass off as one, but
yeah.
I mean, you could see something that charge. But here's another point that I'd like to make about it. Notice how the people involved didn't fight, right? They didn't get nasty. They did their thing, and then they all end up separating, right? Mm-hmm. Even though they had the black Israelite guys really saying some nasty shit, raping and saying it whatever. You see them in the videos of them in San Francisco where they got the white people licking their boots and all sorts of shit like that. It's just like, what the fuck, But none of them are none of those people are fighting, but everybody else is. You know what I mean? That's my problem. You got all these people on social media and everybody's just going crazy, and I've always lived my life this way, and then when I found out that someone put it into words, it literally brought a tear to my eye. When you find yourself in the majority, it's time to stop and reflect. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I've always done. That's Mark Twain. But it's one thing I've always done my whole life. My one friend, he pointed out, he's like, dude, you're always against the grain. I go, no. I just want to make sure I'm not just following. You know what I mean? I don't want to go, because the times that I have, it's burnt me. It's burnt me bad.
Yeah, well, it's people don't want to accept that it's sometimes okay to just disagree and
Right?
not have to be a villain in the situation. It's sometimes okay to just be like, all right, well that thinking isn't for me, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not for me. I was raised with a different set of circumstances, or there's something that makes my viewpoint different from theirs, and theirs can be right for them. Like you see that happen a lot with the Black Lives Matter people, where on both sides. Like some people will be like, the police are perfectly fine and they treat people with respect.
Yeah.
And then other people will be like, no, the police have been fucking with us all the time. And well, if one of you is saying this from a place in San Francisco that's more progressive, not saying San Francisco is perfect when it comes to their police force, they've had their problems.
Oh, yeah.
But just, when you're dealing with the more progressive and you're like, okay, well, the police have been at least somewhat fair with me, in my lifetime.
I've been fortunate to have, as I like to say, human cops or human decisions, because I see some demons out there.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some straight happen right in my face. I'm like, whoa, I've been very fortunate. I've always treated them with respect, because I know yelling and arguing with a cop ain't gonna solve a damn thing.
But people don't get that. Like, people say you're racist for saying that, but it's like it's okay for you to treat the police with respect until it's time for you to actually speak out. Like until they do something wrong. Like, I've been let out of a lot of situations that I probably shouldn't have been let out of, just because I kept cool.
And showing them, hey, I respect you as a person and the position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, I grew up, my grandpa was a deputy probation officer, and he told me, he goes, dude, they're people. They're stressed out. They got bills to pay. They got to worry about their kids and spouses and whatever, what have you. You go, you don't know what kind of day they're having. You don't know. You don't know. They might have, they might have to spend a couple $1,000s on a transmission. You know what I mean? For the car that, whatever. They could be dealing with anything. He's like, you treat them like you would anybody else that you just met and you want to, whatever. Take your keys out, put them on the dashboard, both hands on, and then walk them through. Sir, I'm going to unbuckle my, my seatbelt with my left hand. I'm going to, walk them through the whole. That right there has got me out of a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're just like, thanks. Slow it down. Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, when I was little, my mom, I guess just because she was so worried about us, would always have us wave to the police every time we saw them. Like, this was every time we saw them. And she would always remind us, if anybody ever tries to take you, if anything ever happens, you run straight to one of them. So I think when you grow up with that being like your mindset, they're supposed to help you, that they're actually something good, then you treat them with respect, because they're supposed to help you. And I'm not holding it against anybody that, their skin color has made it so they have a different, like, guttural reaction.
Yeah.
So I'm not, because I know, especially, like, if you saw any civil rights videos growing up, or,
Yeah.
But I came from Arizona where, we didn't have a lot of black people, so that wasn't always on our TV, or you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like the main.
I think
narrative.
that kind of gets brought in, I don't want to say, through the DNA, but kind of the vibration of like of the people or the experience, because it's kind of like when you see a spider, and some people it's like, oh, there's a spider, and some people get the fucking dick, like there's something there, so if you're somewhere in your family, they were traumatized by those events, you see something, you might be like, oh, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, your spidey sense kind of kicks in, that's why I'm always like, go with the gut, go with the gut feeling.
Yeah. Well, and then, you also have to, at that point, sometimes make a conscious effort to relearn something.
Well, that's something that, I had to do. I had to, unlearn a lot of shit, everything really. But one of the things that blew my mind, and I've always been like, I've been like a lifelong criminal. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up hustling herb. I grew up growing dope. I grew up moving and shaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I always had a look on the cops as like, cat and mouse.
Yeah.
And then also there's a point in time in my life where, not me personally, but the people I'm around, I look at the cops as like hired muscle. Some of the dudes. And so I didn't really like have a I was always kind of, against, but in the back of my mind, I don't want to say against, but I always had the criminal aspect side. It kind of looked, I was like, yeah. Because then there's the hypocrisy, of how the prisons are run and how cops always are, they're getting away with a lot of stuff, like they get busted for the DUI, it's on video, but nothing happens, or they get, you know what I mean? The nepotism, the favoritism, all stuff like that. And one of the things, though, that blew my mind, okay, and we have a great example of this with the Parkland shooting, but one of the other examples before the Parkland shooting, I have always pointed to is the Joseph Lozito case in New York a few years back. And what I'm getting at is it's not the police's duty, responsibility, or their job in any way, shape, or fashion to prevent you from being a victim of a crime or stop a crime from happening to you, whether they're there in the physical presence or not. It was just crazy because we're all led to believe that cops are going to jump in front and they're going to, go after the villain. But this dude, Joseph Lozito, was riding the subway, and this was during like a 72-hour stabbing spree where this guy was killed like a handful of people, but stabbing him and stuff. Well, NYPD is on the transit. They're on the subway, and they actually have a run-in with this guy, the killer, right? But they don't do anything about it. They just ignore it, like they just thought he was another New York subway weirdo, right? Mm-hmm. So this dude, Lozito, is sitting next to this dude or across from him on the subway, and he's just like, something's not right about this guy, and the way he's acting. Next thing you know, the dude's attacking him. They get into a scuffle, and he gets stabbed like 7 times in the body, like 13 times in the head, and he's wrestling this dude. All the while, through the window in the next car, like right there, the 2 NYPD officers are watching this go down. So finally, when he gets this dude subdued, he overtakes the guy and he has him. The cops bust in. They arrest the guy. They don't even get this dude medical help. He's bleeding out. People on the subway are helping Lozito out. Cops take all the fucking credit. The guy that wrestled the dude down and did everything and got him, had him basically in his submission hold until they put the cuffs on him and stuff, is called victim. Mm-hmm. Victim whatever 11 or what, you know what I mean? And he's like, what the fuck? So he goes to the court and all stuff like that. Long story short, Supreme Court siding with, I think it's a 9 or 11 other Supreme Court cases where they cited that it's not the police's responsibility to protect you or prevent anything from happening, whether they're in your presence or not. And I always thought that it was a cop. If you had a badge, you were always on duty. Mm-hmm. It's not like that. That's fucking crazy.
Well, people also used to think that the police were supposed to shoot to subdue, which more recently people have found out that police are given the order to shoot to kill. Like if you're shooting, it's for lethal force.
Having been through concealed weapons training, they're like, you don't pull it out to fuck around. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I'm not trying to marginalize, the job and the stress levels and stuff like that, but there's a perception out there, and I think that people should be more aware of that, because then they're not, how many people just call the cops just because they think, that's why cops are so angry with people, because they're being called for nonsense.
Yeah. Well, the cops are
constantly,
supposed to figure out an argument for you, and it's like, no, you can have an argument without having to bring the cops into it.
There's another one. A girl called the cops on her dad for taking her phone away. Mm-hmm. What the fuck? See, my kid would get a severe beating because one thing you do is you don't call the cops.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? This motherfucker needs to be burning down. Something needs to be happening for a reason for them to come here. But if we're having this spat, if unless the neighbor's like shooting or beating each other up or something like that, you know what I mean? Or smacking his wife around or whatever. Yeah, that's a different story. But for that shit, you never.
Yeah,
You know?
well, that's the way most people are raised, where the police are supposed to be
So you end
the
up in
last
jail.
resort. Yeah,
They come out, both of you got to go.
especially here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Vegas, they don't like being bothered. They're like, we let you do everything.
Yeah.
So if you get our attention, somebody's going. That's
Yeah.
just what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're quick with it, but so real quick, I wanted to ask you, you have your podcast, Unbothered.
Unbothered by Ty Rivera.
Unbothered by Ty Rivera, and how long have you been doing the podcast?
How long has it been? I think it's 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah, I think that's what it's been.
Wow. And is it just more of like, because I've picked up a handful of episodes, and you've had guests, so what do you do when you're on the road?
I do it by myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've done more episodes by myself than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, and more
Actually-
recently, I've stopped worrying about doing it weekly.
Okay, yeah. Is that because just so you didn't have to stress out, or?
I didn't like the direction it was going in. And I'm fully in charge of that, so there's no one to blame but me. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the direction it was going in. I started to use it a little bit too much for venting, and it was becoming a little bit too negative, and I had learned to kind of weaponize it as well.
I was going to say, or was it more of like your a vlog, if you will, like an audio blog, if you're.
Yeah, but it got to a point where I was just, I would have because the way it happened was, at first I had a lot of people saying a lot of shit about me that just wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, if I start up my own podcast, I can clear up all of these rumors that people are saying about me. So I can always direct people to the actual story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very effective for that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. But then you get to a point where you see why the media does what they do, because you do notice that the numbers do spike when you're talking about negative shit and throwing people under the bus.
Yeah.
People love to hear that shit. So then you do one where it's just informational and just kind of like, oh, this is what's going on. And you notice the numbers dip, and then you're like, well, I just happen to get another argument now. And so I talk about this, and the numbers fucking spike again. And you just get like, okay, I see what's actually getting people. Like, if I concentrate on this, people listen. If I concentrate on this, people will listen, but eventually, or.
So you doing that kind of homework on it? You're looking at the stats on things, and you're like, okay, this episode I talked about that. That's where I had my most downloads. Or
I was, but just because I think that way sometimes. I want to figure things out, and then I figured out what people wanted, and then I did that for a little while, not on purpose, but just because there was a lot of bullshit happening around me, and so I was like, yeah, I can talk about this, and then I started to realize with the older episodes, because I'm a person who gets over stuff pretty quickly. Like, I can really not like you, and and it'll be momentary unless you do something really terrible to me. I'll get over it. I'm like, I don't really care. So then I had people a year later, like, why don't you talk about that cunt so-and-so? And I'm just like, oh yeah, I don't feel like that anymore. That was
yeah.
me a year ago being mad at that person, and now you're listening to it for the first time and thinking that I'm sworn enemies with this person, when in some cases I either made up with that person or just don't feel one way or the other.
Do you have a follow-up episode if you make up with somebody?
I do. Yeah. I have done that. Yeah.
Like defer to episode, 56.
Which I took down the original episode because so many people were talking about it. But Kim Congdon was one of those people where, she and I had gotten into it, and she's pretty well known from Roast Battle and Kill Tony, and she's pretty popular. But we got into it in LA. We were friendly for a while, and then we had a spat, and it turned into a pretty big thing after a while. And I still know in that situation that I was in the right. I mean, just as far as like, I wasn't trying to start shit. I tried to avoid it for the longest time, but I really did appreciate that we got into it. I talked about it on my podcast, and then maybe a month or two later, I was hanging out outside of the Comedy Store, just chilling, doing nothing. And she was best friends with Brian Redband at the time, and Redband was like going to give her a ride home, and she like walked to his car. He was parked right in front of the Comedy Store, which is right near where I was standing. She walked to his car like to get in, and then she just went ahead and turned around, and she walked over to me and just put her hand out like to shake my hand, and she didn't say anything. And so I just shook her hand back, and then I mentioned on the episode, like, as far as I'm concerned, that situation with Kim Congdon is done, and I respect her for doing that much, because that's more than most people will do.
Right.
And, there was no... So then, I left it after a while just kind of as an archive so people could, know kind of where I'm coming from and that kind of stuff. But... there were so many people that had heard the original and not heard the follow-up when I actually said that we were cool. And so I had people that would want to always go back to that. And so I just was like, let me just take this episode down completely, even though it had a lot of listens.
That sucks. That kind of sucks that's what they're... It's too bad you couldn't go back and throw the little... oh yeah, by the way, update on this one, you know what I mean? So they would at least catch that, but so you didn't have to. But either way, it's people are going to hear what they want to hear as far as like if they side with that.
Oh yeah, well, it's
not,
the most entertaining, I mean, like, they love it, especially because when I'm mad, I say a lot of funny stuff, because I just have a way of like, my mom raised me not to notice what's wrong with people, like you're just not supposed to notice that, which had the opposite effect and made me notice everything that's wrong with people.
Okay, well, just don't say it, mijo.
Yeah, so I just don't say it, and so like, this is the way I am. I never say it. But then somebody makes me mad, and I instantly can point out every single one of their flaws.
Oh, man.
And so it makes it really funny, when because people that actually know that person or watch them or have seen them on podcasts and stuff like that will be like, they do actually do that, or that is a thing that if you notice it. So yeah, so it makes it entertaining for people. And so I just have to take it down.
Yeah. It was funny is I'm not a numbers guy. I never looked like... I didn't, up until a certain point, I never looked at like how many people are following me or anything, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really, it's funny now I watch it and I see how it kind of goes up and down, I'll get like a bunch of followers and they'll fall off or whatever, but the episode that we did that has had the most like downloads and plays and stuff is because we were talking about lizard people.
Oh yeah,
yeah. David Icke and Flat Earth and shit like that. Yeah, so it's just weird. It's people. It's like I think they want to listen. Like when they see that stuff, they want to listen to it and see if there's like something new or weird that they haven't heard, or you're gonna turn them on to something different. I don't know, but it's just weird where our interest lies.
It's entertaining, but they're annoying. The flat earth people get on my nerves because it's like I don't mind listening to anything, but just because I don't immediately get like, oh my God, you're so right. They're like, you see, it's the way that they brainwash. And it's like, shut up. Like it doesn't, like I can be a person, because I had that conversation with another comic that's like a flat earth person.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on our way to San Diego. And they were going through all the like bullshit, and I'm like listening, and I don't care one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, all I know is I got to be in San Diego by 6 p.m. So as long as that happens, I don't care if the earth is round, I don't care if it's flat, I just need to get there. And so then it became a thing of like, but people always do that. They don't want to hear it. And I was like, well, because I've heard you out for over an hour. Like, can I not ever be done with this conversation? Do I just...
Yeah.
Is the only way out for me to say, yes, I now subscribe to Flat Earth?
It's a disc. You just keep going in circles with the same
exactly. Like it is.
No. And I don't want to marginalize anybody's, thing, but my whole thing is at this point, I always look at it, I'm down to entertain the conversation. I'm down to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I don't, that's what, again, that's the whole thing about like, there's no conversation really. My issue that I've always had with like the flat Earth is how people handled that conversation. Because I would watch people. I guess we'll call them roundies in this situation, right? Nothing to do with weight, right? But how they would just totally go off and it was almost like talking to a religious zealot, and they just weren't going to hear anything, and just and the other side of the argument, the flat Earth side, I was just like, they're a lot more eloquent. Like, who gets mad over this stuff? Like, why don't you just boom, boom, boom? But when they keep asking questions and you start getting upset and name calling and da-da-da-da, I was like, you got to remove emotion from science. I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and again, my whole thing is round or flat, there's not a thing I can do about it. People say, well, that's the original lie to keep this. Dude, I'm just dealing with what they're bombarding me on social media and and media itself. Like, that's my fight. That's where I'm at. Like, that's the thing that I look at is, that kind of persuasion. But I'm not afraid. If it was flat, what does it matter to me?
That's the way I feel about it. That's why I don't argue with people.
Does it make traveling quicker?
Yeah, I always feel like I'll just keep listening. I don't mind listening to Flat Earth. I don't mind listening to roundies, as you've decided to call them. I don't mind listening to either. And I just hate when people want me to admit that I subscribe to their thinking, when it's like, I'm still just one way or another. I have this gig to take care of, or I have this little dog sitting on my lap, or, one way or another, these are the things that I have to take care of. So whether or not that's actually a thing, we can continue to explore it. I'm not saying don't research, don't read, don't listen, I'm not saying any of that.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I am a big believer that NASA is full of shit. I do believe that. I mean, there's been proven a lot of stuff that they're full of shit, but I'm not gonna just go and be like one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. That's not my fight, but
it's interesting and it's great to talk about. All of it's conversation, all of it's good to talk about. It's just the whole even when people talk about Illuminati or that kind of stuff, it's all very interesting, and sometimes it's really fun to fall down the rabbit hole.
Totally.
And when people, especially when they talk about the things with pop culture and Beyonce and, the celebrities, and then they show the imagery and stuff, you do get well, that is a recurring theme, or you do see that all the time. And is there any,
Here's one, just talk about Beyonce. Did you ever see this one where she was doing some type of dance, whatever, what have you, and I can't remember what exactly video or whatever it is, but it's her dancing around a chair and doing all this stuff, right? And then then the video slides over, and then there's another girl dancing and doing the same thing in the chair, and the moves are the exact same, right? And they're like, this right here is a ritual dance done in an Illuminati, whatever, what have you. This is the opening of a seance. It's spell casting type stuff. And then here she is doing it, and it's broadcasted over the Super Bowl, or all of that stuff. I've always thought that, and we're gonna have a guy on, this rapper guy, to talk about it and stuff. But I always thought that there was something to that, because when you hear the stories of how the radio executives would buy the masters of music and put them in a certain place, and they had to be in a pyramid-shaped vault for energy and stuff. You're like, what the fuck is this stuff? You know what I mean? It's all kooky until you start learning a lot of different stuff. Even in just if you learn stuff from quantum physics and science, and you're like, whoa, that's the same kind of stuff that they're using in that spiritualism or whatever, or the the spells the stuff that you hear. But I've always known in music, there's always been something with the devil. You know what I mean? Robert Johnson. You familiar with that?
No.
Robert Johnson was the creator of blues, if it kind of in a way, what his music led to like rock and roll and stuff like that. But Robert Johnson, they made a movie with Ralph Macchio, which
Oh yeah, the Crossroads. Yeah, I saw Crossroads.
he was the original guy that went out sold his soul to the devil to play the guitar over on the Mississippi Delta, and there's recordings of Robert Johnson where he's playing and he's singing, and it sounds like there's other people there, like other instruments, but it's just him playing like different stuff on just the guitar, just an acoustic guitar. But he's playing it so well, it sounds like there's other shit going on, right? Anyways, yeah. Sorry, that's
All good.
gotcha. But Robert Johnson
Right.
changed music, revolutionized, right? And the thing is the devil come to collect his due at the age of 27, when he was 27, and he was poisoned by a jealous boyfriend of a girl that he had the attention of
I
at the
thought
time.
you were about to say he was gay. I was
no,
like
no.
a jealous boyfriend.
No. And so everybody in the Robert Johnson curse is everybody that changed music in their genre, changed, fractioned it off, and it sent it a different
Kurt
way.
Cobain.
All died at the age of 27.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain.
Amy Winehouse was part of that.
I think Amy
too,
Winehouse.
yeah.
I mean, it's like, whoa. And then when you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's a coincidence. But you're like, these people really changed music in their respected genre. You know what I mean? Like Jim Morrison, kind of not the guy with the best voice, but he was like, I'm doing it. And it kind of, they kind of opened up. Same with Janis Joplin, as far as like, you didn't have to be a Southern belle. You didn't have to be this pretty girl. You can be you, and it's the emotion that changed things, that opened up people. Jimi Hendrix, obviously, Kurt Cobain. The Melvins, technically, I'm a big Melvins guy, but the Melvins technically started the grunge, but it wasn't that push from Nirvana, where destroyed big hair fucking metal.
Yeah.
I mean, Unskinny Bop, all that shit, hairband, all it was fucking wiped out of existence overnight, Tupac was like 26, I think, when he died, or 25. He was young, but...
Yeah, I don't remember. I can honestly say I don't know.
But, yeah, so, I believe in, these people could be into this Satanism and stuff. Why would they use these certain symbols?
But it doesn't necessarily have to be all be Satanism. Some of it is like old school Wiccan rituals. Like
Pagan.
there's certain things where it's like people that are just working with.
But then you
the
got
elements.
Gaga wearing a meat suit. Or what about her new movie, though? That's creepy, too. Her new movie is all about getting the blood of young children to keep her youthful, which is...
A Star is Born?
Was it the new one that's just...
I'm so stupid. I'm like, A Star is Born?
No, I don't
what
think
did I miss? I thought that was the old Streisand flick.
No, this new one where she's like, it's like her, I don't know. For some reason, it reminds me of like The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know why, because she's like this rich chick that's like mentoring another girl or something like that. But her whole thing is getting blood from children. It's like her fountain. It's like the fountain of youth, and it's like this
I
thing.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so
I gotta look. I gotta check it out.
there's a lot of weird shit going on out there.
Well,
that they just
like
pass as entertainment.
Madonna's Super Bowl performance is one people point out, where she was basically being Baphomet in the beginning of the performance. Like that's one that people do the side by side of, and when you look at it, it's like, yeah, what is that all about? But then
Well,
it's
you have
also
the
like it's a hell of a performance.
But yeah,
And I don't know if that's just because I'm gay and I'm wired that way, but it's just like,
well, there's a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah,
that
you
goes
see
into
Madonna and you're just like, this bitch has it together.
What's the last one that she showed her? She had her ass hanging out on this one thing that she just did, and I was like, looking a little not as Madonna-ish anymore in the round southern region, back region.
You gotta accept that you're old at some point, or you're gonna get. It's okay to be old. That's one thing I wish people would stop.
Did you see her guns though?
Oh, yeah.
A few years ago, when she was like doing all the yoga stuff.
She's amazing, and that's why I think at a certain point it's okay to just get old. It's okay to just be like, I had a great life, and I'm now just an older person. But then they get slammed for that too. Like Pamela Anderson is a good example of that. At a point, yeah, she was Pamela Anderson, and 24/7 she was that hot bitch.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point she was just like, yeah, I'm done with that, and now I'm gonna go for a more understated look. And then if you read the comments, anytime they show pictures of her looking that way, it's like she's an old hag, she's a wash up, she's a has-been.
Look how she let herself go. And I was like, do your 10-year challenge. Let's see how you look.
Yeah, and she looks great for an older woman, but at some point we're all gonna get older, so it's not okay to just at some point be like, I'm good.
I'm sure it's got to be just a mind fuck for a celebrity, especially somebody when you're solely you're marketed on your looks, and you start seeing that kind of slip away. The new look comes in, your look kind of goes out. That's got to be something crazy. I mean, it's almost like being known for like your one joke. And I bring this up, and it's not to marginalize anything that he's done or does or did, but Gallagher, known for smashing fruit.
I thought you were gonna go for Larry the Cable Guy.
Well, there's
I
that
knew
too.
You were gonna,
but that wasn't his first joke.
Get her done.
That wasn't his first joke. You know what I mean? Like, but Gallagher, and I don't want to say it was his first joke, but that was his first gimmick, and it just was like something he can't shake. Unless he's in these clubs, the smaller clubs now. But
he may not be able to shake it, but he can smash it.
But Larry the Cable Guy, yeah, dude. I mean, I forget his real name. My friends went to school with him in Nebraska, but is anybody gonna go see the guy behind Larry the Cable Guy?
Was it Mitch something, or I can't remember? But yeah, it's a very normal name.
Oh, totally. Yeah, he doesn't sound anything like that.
Yeah.
Which is I'm all for it, but. Yeah, do you really want to be doing the like? Here's one of the things. There's a picture of people taking a picture of Eric Estrada lately. He's been at one of these places or shows. A lot of the comics have been out and about, and they've taken pictures.
Yeah, where was he? I just saw James Michael, the redneck magician.
Yeah, something going on in town. I seen about a half dozen of people taking pictures with him. I was like, oh. I don't know where. No one's tagged the location.
I know. Nobody wants to give it up. That's conspiracy right there.
I was going to say, dude, that guy's rocking that good hair. I want to go meet him. But kind of just known for Poncherelli. You know what I mean? Like, at least, some guys, they have a body of work. But, some of those people... They're that character for life. Gilligan he was Gilligan for life. There's no place for him to go, So I always say, in conversation, not like I'm a person of to give anybody advice, but I'm like, if you're gonna do a gimmick as a comedian, you better fucking love it. You better like it. You better just make that you, because I'll tell you what, I for a while when my closer was a De Niro face, I would do jokes and I'd make the and that's all people wanted to see. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. People that come, hey, and I'm like, no, dude, I'm not doing the face. If it
I'll
happens,
never forget you calling Scratch with a K Connor McBeggar.
Oh,
that was the best.
Thank you.
I lost it.
I was very proud of that. I wrote that one. I was like, yes. Because he has that look. I love Scratch.
And he was like all dressed up, so it did look like a Conor McGregor suit he was wearing that night. Yeah. But
was it his captain suit? I mean, he had so many some classics, but
it was like a flashy. It almost looked like polyester or some kind of, like it was a nice suit, but at the same time, it fit with the Conor McGregor so well that I lost it. I couldn't keep it together.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
But yeah, I guess if you were known for just one thing, I've had that a little bit where people will want to harp on certain aspects of like my personality or things I said on social media. and that gets exhausting. So I just completely stay away from it. You know, I voted for Trump. A lot of people know that. And now I'm the gay.
Are they expecting you to be this full-blown Trumper? now?
Yeah, and I'm the gay Mexican who voted for Donald Trump. And so, like, I got asked to do a really popular YouTube show about it, you know, where they just wanted to ask me a bunch of questions. And I would have been fine with any of the questions, I'm sure. But my thing is, do I want an audience like thinking of me as that? Because I voted for Obama twice. Nobody calls me the gay Mexican that voted for Obama.
Fact.
You know,
Yep.
nobody identifies me that way. And I was just as open about voting for Obama. Me and Bruce Jingles, who's, I don't know if you know,
Yeah, I know
Bruce,
Bruce, yeah.
great comedian. Yeah, it was super fun. We started the if you're not for Obama, then fuck your mama campaign.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so, like, you know, I was just as open about that, probably even more obnoxious about it, because we really had fun with that campaign.
Well, that's a good that has a good little rhyme to it, little zip to it, you know.
Yeah, that was Bruce Jingles, and that came up with the actual rhyme, and I was just like, there we go, we're going with it. And so, but, you know, it does get like, yeah, I don't always want to talk about Trump. And just because I vote for a person doesn't mean that I agree with every single thing they do and say. It's the same with,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
how
when I
could you?
voted for Obama. I was never, you know, all about him. It's like I, as an American, vote the way that I think is going to be best for the country. And not everybody has to agree with it. I'm one vote. If you don't like my vote, then you vote and cancel me out.
There
You've
you
just
go.
effectively done that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, you know, we're a 1-for-1 situation. You have a vote, I have a vote. So you can cancel me out if you want to, and that's your right as an American. But I don't feel like I should constantly have to defend it to you, because I'm not asking anybody to constantly defend what they've done. The people that I know, and I do know a lot of them, that voted for Hillary, I don't ever ask them to explain themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never like, you know, well, why did you choose to vote that way? What made you think it's like,
Right. Yeah.
why do I care so much about the way your brain works? You know, you voted that way because you thought that that was the best decision. And, you know, maybe as far as your factors and the people you see and what you're trying to see happen with the country, you still stand by that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people just to talk about voting which way between Trump and Hillary. People are just like, not her. You know what I mean? Like, there's votes that went both ways that way.
Well,
you know what I
that's
mean?
the
Like,
time that people will try to handicap you in the conversation, because they'll be like, okay, well, why did you vote for Donald Trump? And then you'll be like, you know, well, I liked this, I liked that. And then there was the fact that I thought Hillary was, no, not about Hillary. Okay, well, if I'm picking between two things, if you ask me what I like better, Coke or Pepsi, and then you tell me I can't tell you what I don't like about whichever one I didn't pick, then it doesn't really seem fair to me that you would handicap me that way. Like, I'm comparing two things.
yeah.
You know, I've got to pick between these two things. So what I don't like about the other one is probably always going to come into play on some level. You know, like you even make it more like, you know, less brand loyal and take Pepsi and Diet Pepsi. Well, I think diet drinks have a funny aftertaste.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know, so I mean, like,
It's like stevia. It's good, but if you use too much, there's that aftertaste.
yeah, and I get that for certain people, like, people used to talk about that with cocaine all the time. I was never big on coke, but I'm not going to say I've never done it. But, like, you know, some people really love the drainage. They love that aspirin-y, excedrin-y taste in the back of their throat. Some people love it. They crave it. Me personally, I thought it was disgusting, and it was just a necessary evil if you were going to do coke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, I can't. Different things appeal to different people, you know, and I get tired of that part of where people decide that you're something because you said one thing one time. You know,
I get that all the time. I get that all the time because no matter which side I'm usually talking to, if I'm having like an actual conversation, especially with people that don't know me or online, whatever it is they are, I'm the opposite. You know, I'm talking to somebody on the left, and I'm like, well, there's some inconsistencies in this, da-da-da-da. They're like, oh, you're just a right-winger, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Okay, you already thrown out names. We're done. You know what I mean? You're already you're now arguing with emotion, da da da. Talking to somebody on the right, oh, you're libtard, lefty liberal, da da da. And I was like, okay, lost you there too. I'm like, you don't see, it's just because you're calling out what's comfortable for them, you know. I in the words of Sam Tripoli, I'm a Ronin. You know what I mean? I don't have a master. I do my own thing. I'm out there and I see what's available and what fits for me. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
what
the
I
most
got.
frustrating thing for most people, because that's the same situation I have. Like, you know, and when you're like that, you don't even agree with your best friends or like who are your closest allies always. Sometimes it's just like, you know, yeah, I don't agree. But if you have a good, strong circle, you can disagree and still be friends.
Oh, totally.
You know, I have my best friend Renee, and you know, she lives in New Jersey, and she's black, or some would say block, because her family is West Indian.
Okay.
I say, bitch, you were raised in New Jersey, you're black. As far as I go.
He darker than a motherfucker. He dark.
Yeah, you know, you're from New Jersey. You were born in New Jersey. Like, I know your parents are West Indian, you know. But anyway, she and I, we get into it. Like, you know, where we'll strongly disagree on certain things. Mm-hmm. And then we hang up the phone, or we'll move on to another subject. And then, you know, but we don't hang up angry, or it doesn't have to be a like, you know, well, I guess we just don't need to talk for a while. It's like, all right, well, we've both been felt on that subject. So I heard you, you heard me.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes even from conversations like that, my mind will change later on. And it might not even be that day. It'll be like, you know, maybe a month or two later, sometimes even as much as like 6 months later. And I'm just like, you know, I kind of see their point now, or this particular person's point now. It didn't, at the time, it made no sense at all. But now I at least see, or sometimes I still don't agree with them, but I'm like, I can at least see how they see it that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's
like a space opens up in your brain. You're like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like before, there was no room in there for even to entertain the idea.
Yes,
you know?
And you might feel like still not for me, but I can see how they see it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
No, that's what I'm
then,
saying.
I thought they were fucking crazy.
Yeah, right.
They were all the way fucking crazy. But yeah, it is, and that's a good way to describe it, as a space opening up in your brain where it's like, oh shit, that actually maybe could be a thing for somebody.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny as you say. A lot of my great friends that I have in my life, we'll go years without talking, and we'll meet each other, and it's like we never even were apart. You know, It was like how we hung out every day. And then I have those same friends, or people I talk to more frequently and stuff. But we'll go at it. You know, we'll go at it about stuff, even things that we agree, but just have a different take on it. Mm-hmm. We'll go at it, but it's nothing to, you know, it's like, you know, fuck you. All right, see you tomorrow. All right, yep. All right, we're still on for the tea time. You know what I mean, like that kind of thing. My good buddy Adam, who, you know, we disagree with a lot of stuff, you know, and he thinks I'm a complete loon and all stuff like that. And I think that, you know, he's a big Nelly, you know what I mean, mm-hmm. like as far as, and but I would fight for that dude to the bitter end. You know what I mean? I'd go to war for that guy. I think he'd do the same. He might just like make fun of me along the way, but you know what I mean? Like, no, I mean, him and his family, like they're my family. So, you know, I would never let politics, unless it was like something, if somebody was just bad, you know, angry, negative, you know what I mean? Cause I just don't need that in my life, you know?
Well, you know, I also have my family that will troll me in real life. You know, my family, we're not a big online family, even though people probably think that about me all the time. But like superficial shit happens on Facebook for me. I don't even look at it as real life. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm starting to like get that some people really don't see it that way. You know, for them, that's everything. Yeah. You know, but like the real shit that happens in my life, like there was a point where somebody got mad at me and they were like, you know, well, what you don't realize is I know your family and I've talked to them and they all really don't like respect you. And I was just like, yeah, you clearly don't know that my family would never talk to a stranger about me. That's not the kind of family I come from.
Who says that?
Yeah, it's
Right?
It was the weirdest situation. It's like, and they were really trying to convince me.
Are they trying to
you know,
like pry you up, like just to have you lose your shit?
yeah, well, that's what the whole point of the whole thing was. And it was just like, you don't get.
From
like,
unbothered to unhinged?
Exactly.
Right.
Like, my family and my close friends, we don't have those kinds of situations. Like, we might disagree on shit, but we're not trying to fucking, like, fuck each other over or secretly hate each other. It's like, no, when people even talk about like fighting or arguing politics with their families over Thanksgiving, I'm just like, yeah, we don't do that in my family. That's not something that happens. Even if we don't agree, it's just like, yeah, we're not going to fight over it. It's just,
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
we talked about it. We had a sec. My mom makes me laugh, because she'll say things just to get on my nerves. She still insists OJ didn't do it. She loves to, and she loves to. You can tell it brings her joy, even though like you can bring up every bit of evidence you could. And she's like,
Hey, mijo,
I don't care.
the U.S. is not guilty, or just fucking with you on just out of nowhere.
I don't care. She'll tell you all the time, I don't care. And then one time we were talking, and she told me that if I didn't like it, I could go back to my country. And I was born from her in Arizona. So it's like the most ridiculous troll ever for your own mother to be like, if you don't like it, you can go back to your country.
I'm like, so I'm expect to crawl back up in there. Is what you're saying over there? Is there enough room?
I might know where the border is.
There's
But,
barbed wire. No.
My whole family, like we have fun with each other. But we definitely test each other, and there's not like a real line where you're gonna be like, you're not allowed to talk about this around me, or that subject is off limits. It's like, well, leave the room if you don't like us talking.
It's funny as my wife will be like, just don't start on your shit. She'll be like, just don't start it. And I never do. I end up taking over, but I never start it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just enjoying my turkey leg over here, and you want to talk to me about politics? Boom. Sorry. There's no room for mashed potatoes no more.
I'm so good at letting people just say whatever they want to say. I just don't care.
Well, yeah. I definitely let them have their piece, but I stopped though. I really, I've scaled it back because I just learned. I learned a long time ago, like what I'm used to, what I look into politics and stuff. What I is like when somebody is probably the same look that I give people when they start talking about sports stats and this guy did this in this year and this guy did that, and they're throwing out all these names. I'm like, I don't know what you're fucking talking about. But then I'm like, Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, and this, that, and the King, Queen Beatrix, and I'm just throwing out all these names. People are like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, these are people who are running your lives, And I'm like, now I'm just like, yeah, I just got to have these conversations with certain people. You can't just, pull it into regular, hey, how you doing today? Well, let me tell you about the Federal Reserve. You know what I mean? Like, can't really start. Do you see the price of gold today? I just can't start in on people. So, yeah. And I don't, but
I don't. I feel the same way. Like, there's people that I'll engage with because I think that they're gonna come at it from a logical perspective, and I'm always cool to have those conversations. But real emotion, I'm just not doing with people. It's like, I don't want to argue with you.
Are you a stoic individual? Or are you not like an emotional?
I can be very emotional, but from being emotional, I've learned to be more stoic.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the process if you're taking self-inventory, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you letting it? Because we all do, but some more and some less to some degree in our lives or somewhat. But is anything that you do to where it's like decision making, or you're like, fuck, I really lost control of that situation, You know what I mean? Like my emotions really took over. Or are you kind of like,
Oh, I've done that a lot, and that's how I learned. But see, I also operate, which a lot of people get mad at this thinking, but I operate from, even though I'll get into it with people and stuff like that, eventually I always have to find out where I was wrong in the situation. So even if overall I feel like I was right, there are always places where I didn't handle it the best. So I try to concentrate on that and make myself a better person. Because I'm not going to make the other person a better person, you know, and that's not my job. That's not what I'm here for. If you learn something from me, then great, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy that that happened for you. But as far as I go, I can learn to not give into my emotions in certain situations. I can learn to find better ways to talk to people where maybe even like what we were discussing, even if they don't agree with me, they can at least see my point of view, even if that means that I have to be more patient and put up with them every once in a while saying something that might be a little bit kind of out of line, you know, or like, but I just feel like as I've grown, and it's taken a long time, you know, it's not like I'm the youngest person in the world, but as I've grown, I've learned to be better at not just being an emotional mess all the time, which I think is a lot of where people fuck themselves.
no, 100%.
And
100%.
And their friends aren't good enough to be, see, that's where I love my family, because it may not happen in front of you, but like my mom sometimes, if I'm like, you know, oh, I had this happen, I did this, this, and this, she'll sometimes like think about what I'm saying. Sometimes she's 100% on my side, but sometimes she'll just be like, I think you were wrong in that situation. And then she'll explain to me why she thinks I'm wrong. And then one of the things she's always told me since I was a kid, which I think like made me the way I am, was she'll tell me afterwards, like, you don't have to like it. I just said it. You know, and so then it's like, all right.
That's really good to be brought up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mom's always just, you know, my mom and my grandma always just tell like it is. My grandma was probably like had the best read on anybody. She'd just be, that person's garbage, you know? And I'm like, what? How do you not know? This is good. Trust me, I know. Next thing you know, like, fucking piece of shit, garbage motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, grandma knew it, you know? Like, although my grandma, she did say every girl that I liked was a hussy, and no, not good for me. So until my wife, she met my wife, she's like, I like this one. She's a good one. So, but, fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. Good Lordy.
Yeah, it was just, we were talking about, you know, which I think is very important with people. And that's why I keep those people around me. Like I said,
Honesty.
with my friend Renee, like, we don't agree on everything. We agree enough that every conversation is not a battle or anything. But, you know, like, it's nice to have that around and just be like, okay, maybe I do need to look at that part of myself. Maybe I am being maybe a little bit too rigid right there, or there's some space for growth.
Well, you know, that's really, I mean, you need that in your life. You don't need like yes men, or, you know what I mean? You don't need that.
Those are the quickest people to fuck you.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that agree and are your fan at every fucking turn.
The people that your best friend, like the first 5 seconds of meeting them, they're just like, those are usually the ones that burn out faster than anything.
Wait to fuck you over.
Yeah, dude, seriously.
There's a secret hate brewing for you where they want to lull you into this false sense of security, you know, where it's like, oh, I trust you, I love you, I have your back, I'm like, you can completely rely on
me. Then they're gonna go do some shit and be like, they got my back, you know, and you're like, you ain't dragging me in on this, or you know, there's always like, something.
What happened to that guy? What happened to my best friend over here? Now
no, totally.
You're gone.
No, one of the things like coming up, like, you know, in cutting my teeth and stuff like that, learning myself on stage and stuff it was always good to have honest people around. And the only people that I really hung around with were the people that were like, would tell the honest truth, you know. All the time I'd see guys, they were hanging around with all these other guys, and they're all like in these cliques and stuff like that, but they're just like, they just overly, well, I don't want to say overly, whatever, but they heavily promote one another, and oh, this guy's he's doing this, and all stuff. And I was like, I listened to him talk, I'm like, you're not like, that's good, the cheerleading's good, but you're not like helping them get any better. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like they just got off the stage and you're like, oh, dude, you crushed it. And they didn't crush it. You're not you know what I mean? You're not helping them.
Yeah, and
you know?
also then your recommendations don't mean anything. Like from a comedy perspective, like most people that I recommend for shit will actually end up booking what it is I recommend them for, just because people know that I'm kind of a dick when it comes to that stuff. So bookers know that, and they're like, well,
there's a standard.
He's probably not just going to say it to be nice.
Yeah.
So it must be this person's worth having on, you know, but that also makes it so people get mad at you because they feel like you're just supposed to give them your endorsement because they talk to you at an open mic or you know. And
yeah. See, that's so crazy. It's weird how people, I wish I had that audacity. I wish I had that kind of delusional, you know, confidence, if you will. Those people that don't have it, but ask for it and go for it. Mm-hmm. The only problem is they burn it for everybody else. They make it difficult, you know, and it happens time and time again. People would burn rooms out here all the time. They're burning rooms right now. There's some of these shows I'm like, really? You're charging to cover for the I'm sorry, but that's an open mic at best. Like, yeah. I hate to be a dick, but I mean, come on. Just look at the product. I'm not one to be a judge, but I know as a consumer, mm-hmm. you wouldn't get my money, right? And knowing these people, knowing what's coming, you know, then you want to make it, bring her, I don't want to perform in anybody. I don't want anybody I know there. I want to be strangers.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not what you wanna. You don't want to become known for, I guess, low quality in whatever you're doing. You know,
yeah, I mean, there's a product. You know, at the end of the day, that is a quality comedy show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Something that's, you know, we would do the free shows over at the old Sahara Lounge, me and Slammy, and we'd put on these amazing shows. And I'm like, bro, this show right here could be sold on the Strip. This booking, what you're doing, we could have a room on the Strip. Like this, you could charge for this. This is quality comedy right here, and you know, great audience and all stuff like that. And you know, here we are, we're doing it week after week for free. You know, really diverse and stuff like that. And then you have these other people who don't have the experience selling the shows. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I'm not knocking it. Hey, dude, I hustle, but you know, I kind of think a little. You know, you got to think about it a little bit. But that was one of the things that, you know, the guys that I hung around with most coming up doing comedy was Bobby and John Gilligan and Greg Salerno. Like, and the one thing about each one of us with each other, how we hung out and stuff like that, was no matter how good anybody did on stage, it'd be like, oh, yeah, that was good. But you know where you could have really got them, or you know where you kind of lost it, or it was a little flat right here, you know, like there was always that, and mm-hmm. It was done to be like to keep to help you out, you know what I mean.
I do that to this day, like with my own sets, like, you know, and I know that I have some amazing sets, mm-hmm. but I can always tell you what was wrong with everyone. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that joke. I didn't, like, you know, I need to be like, that's a part of also why
it's so hard for me to watch.
I learn to control my emotions, because I notice if you're dealing with hecklers, cooler heads really do prevail.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So when these people lose it, it's like the thing you got to remember with hecklers is every once in a while you will end up like a swing and a miss type mentality. You know what I mean? Where, oh, that wasn't funny, I said that, or that was just getting information from them. But if you're patient and you don't lose your temper, you can hit them so hard with something that's probably good-natured, and the audience doesn't feel guilty laughing about it, and just completely like fucking destroy, you know, where they're just like, oh, yeah. Wow, that was fucking great. You know, that's why we paid to watch a comedy show.
Yeah, I've never really had, and it's always been a fear of mine. I am, especially when I was a younger comedian, of getting a heckler and them destroying me, or them, you know what I mean. And I've had some hecklers that were worthy adversary. Uh-huh. You know, quick-witted, sharp tongue, and great timing. You know, the only way out of that situation, at least the one that I'm thinking about, that was where I was like almost in a panic, was just being honest in the moment and just recognizing, be like, oh damn, should we Martin and Lewis this thing, or should I get on with my material, right? And everybody, and he was like, all right, you know what I mean? And it wasn't a bad heckle. It was like one of those, I'm helping out, but now I'm like, I'm the funny guy too, you know. But how many times I've seen comedians just like, shut the fuck up, I'm the fucking you know, or call somebody a cunt, you know,
It's
like
the worst, yeah.
And I was like, dude, you just fucking shit on yourself. You just did you're a comedian. You're not, you're not some knuckle dragging fucking gonna duke it out with the person out there. Like, you're supposed to use that wit. You're supposed to use your charm. You're supposed to be.
Yeah, and you can call him a cunt with a smile on your face if you wait till you're not mad about it. And they'll laugh and the audience will laugh. I am so disrespectful with people in the most fun and respectful way. Like,
Yeah.
People will put up with me being like, yeah, really, bitch? You know what I mean? Or like, and I'll talk to men that way, but everybody knows that I'm not angry at all. I'm having a good time. This is within the context of the show. You decided to heckle. I'm treating you accordingly, which, like we just discussed, you don't have to be my enemy, but, I'm the one that's got to make this fun one way or another because I'm the one that's getting paid. So, I think...
And I want to come back. I want to get paid again.
That's what it is. And I don't want to feel like an asshole when they're paying me. I don't want to feel like, oh, I don't deserve this. Really,
no, you don't
all
need
I
to
did was piss people off.
Torpedo a fucking whole show. You know what I mean? Or whatever. But speaking of that, I did a show one time, and there was a heckler there, and she was heckling everybody. Mm-hmm. And she started with the host. And this is from weeks prior. She'd been to the other shows and stuff. She had just started in. It was their normal thing. And the host starts, shut up, bitch, da-da-da-da, Then the other comics would go up. And then if she didn't like what he said, be like, and heckle them. Like, shut the fuck up, you dumb Mormon cunt. Da-da. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. They're just all just going in. So I went up there, and it was my turn. And she didn't even give me a chance. Right? And I just went up there and I was like, is that your husband? And whatever. And she's like, yeah, what of it? And I was like, I just went into this whole dialogue of him being Archie and her being Edith. And I just went back and forth and I had everybody fucking howling. I had her laughing. She's smacking her husband on the shoulder like, you know what I mean? I did probably like 3 minutes of just, boy, the Wigglin' Miller play. You know what I mean? Just like, the whole thing. And I get off, I get through my set. I get off stage and the lady comes right over to me. She grabs me by the shirt. She takes me over the bar and she goes, whatever he wants. This is the only funny motherfucker in the house. Mm-hmm. And I was like, because I didn't have to go and cuss at her. Everybody was doing it and it wasn't stopping anything.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me when I watch seasoned veterans, shut up, bitch. Or, you know what I mean? Like, dude, really? Like, have you just been working soft rooms for so long you forgot what you can fucking do? You know what I mean?
That's what it is. They're there to recite.
I don't know how people do that.
But I've got another comedian that's in town right now, and I have got to go pick him up.
Are we pushing it, getting close? Yeah. Well, I appreciate it greatly, Ty, for coming and having the old chatty with us, talking it up.
No, I hope I wasn't enough of or I wasn't too far away from the conspiracy thing to.
Oh, that's not the premise. That's just I just like to have that because that's how deep we can go.
Okay,
you know what I mean. Like,
I'm glad I didn't ruin the theme then.
No. No. Anything you'd like to plug? Anything coming up, or let everybody know where you can find you and your podcast?
I am living in Vegas right now, and that's the most fun and important thing to me right now. So anybody that's ever in Vegas, hit me up any way you can. America's Favorite Fag is one. That'll take you straight to my website, America's Favorite Fag. If you don't want to type that, TyRivera.com, ThairIvera. And that's also how you can find me on pretty much everything to do with social media, except for Instagram, where I'm at official Ty Rivera.
Did you have to do that, or
Some young Brazilian girl got Ty Rivera, and I hit her up, and she wasn't budging.
she's steadfast, huh?
She was 15 at the time. I'm sure, this was when Instagram first became a thing, so it has to be like,
You ever followed up on her and see how she's doing on
yeah,
that?
I check in every once in a while. I fucking hate her. I'm bitter,
Yeah.
Because she was 15 when I hit her up, and I knew that, and I was like, I don't mind talking to an adult. I'm willing to buy my name off of you, I'm willing to buy it. And she was like, I'm 15, and which is the way I imagine her to talk. And she probably doesn't talk that way, but she was like, it let me know that she has no interest. She wasn't even willing to run it by an adult.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not gonna shake down a kid, so I was just like, I guess I just have to leave this alone.
Flagger for child porn.
Yeah,
No,
just kidding. I'll leave her alone. But yeah, so official Ty Rivera on Instagram, but everything else you can find me Ty Rivera.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Bijou, for hanging out.
Yeah, Bijou's a little sick. I'm gonna get her well.
Right on. Guys, again, you can catch us on ThinkStopper.com or ThinkStopper on Instagram. Everything else, Trez Mala. I just want to say thank you again. We're going to fire up another episode next week, or next Sunday. We're going to have King O back again to talk about some crazy Illuminati shit, as well as what's going on in the world of the Vegas judicial system, what's happens in our courts. The guy's an investigator, so he's got some good greasy stories. Same with Mikey. He's a bail bondsman, so they got some great stories. So we're gonna get into that. But guys, we're out there. Thanks again, and appreciate it greatly. Toodles.
Ah!